Some of the most confusing words you'll ever hear in dating are not insults. They're not rejection. They're not even lies. They're sentences that sound honest, but somehow leave you feeling like you just walked out of a room where nobody told you the full story. One of the most famous ones is this: "I'm not ready for a relationship." People say it in a calm voice, almost like they're doing you a favor, like they're protecting you from something. But what most people never talk about is what that sentence really means. Because sometimes it means exactly what it sounds like. And other times, it means something completely different. There was a woman once who told her friend about a man she had been seeing for 3 months. At the beginning, everything felt easy. He called every morning. He asked about her day. He remembered the little things she said, the kind of attention that makes you believe someone is genuinely interested. But then slowly, the rhythm started changing. The texts became shorter. The calls became less frequent. The effort started fading in ways that were small enough to ignore, but big enough to feel. Eventually, one evening after dinner, he looked at her and said, "I really like you. I just think I'm not ready for a relationship right now." For a moment, she believed him. It sounded respectful, mature, like emotional honesty. But 2 months later, he was in a relationship with someone else. Now, before anyone rushes to anger, this is where emotional intelligence becomes important. Because the truth about dating is not that people are always dishonest. The truth is that people are often uncertain. And uncertainty can look a lot like rejection, but it isn't always the same thing. Sometimes when someone says they are not ready, what they actually mean is, "I don't feel strongly enough to build something serious with you," and that sentence is much harder to say out loud. Because people don't want to feel like the villain in someone else's story. So they choose softer language that protects both people from the discomfort of honesty. But relationships have always been built on a strange emotional reality. When someone truly wants to be with you, readiness appears surprisingly fast. People who say they are emotionally unavailable somehow still manage to become emotionally available for someone who makes them feel certain. Not because they planned it, but because human attraction is deeply tied to emotional clarity. And clarity is something you can't force. There was another man who once said something interesting during a conversation about dating. He said, "I used to think I had commitment issues. For years I kept telling women I wasn't ready. But one day I met someone who made me realize I wasn't afraid of commitment. I was afraid of the wrong commitment." And that sentence explains something many people learn too late. Not everyone who walks away from you is avoiding relationships. Sometimes they are avoiding the wrong relationship for them. And painful as it may sound, that distinction matters. Because the biggest mistake people make after hearing "I'm not ready" is trying to convince the other person that they should be. They start explaining their value. They start proving their loyalty. They start showing how good they would be together. But attraction rarely grows from persuasion. It grows from emotional alignment. Two people reaching the same conclusion at the same time. Not one person pulling the other across the finish line. Healthy dating is not about convincing someone to stay. It's about noticing when someone is already choosing to stay without effort. When someone wants you in their life, their behavior becomes surprisingly simple. They respond. They show up. They make time. They include you in their future conversations. There is no emotional guessing game. No decoding messages. No wondering where you stand. But when someone isn't sure about you, everything becomes complicated. Plans feel temporary. Affection feels inconsistent. And conversations about the future become vague, not because they are bad people, but because they are standing in the middle of a decision they haven't made yet. And indecision is one of the most emotionally exhausting places to be in a relationship. This is where emotional maturity changes everything. Because mature people don't just listen to what someone says, they observe what someone consistently does. If someone says they are not ready, believe them. But also pay attention to the pattern of their actions. Because the goal of dating isn't to win someone over. The goal is to discover whether two people naturally move toward each other. One of the quiet truths about relationships is that the right connection rarely feels like a negotiation. It feels like momentum, two people slowly building something without constantly questioning if it should exist. And when that momentum isn't there, no amount of patience can manufacture it. That's why some of the healthiest decisions in dating are also the quietest ones. Walking away without drama, accepting someone's uncertainty without trying to change it, allowing people the freedom to choose what they truly want, even when that choice isn't you, because strangely enough, that level of self-respect often attracts the kind of relationships people are actually looking for. Not relationships built on convincing, but relationships built on mutual certainty. And maybe that's the deeper lesson hidden inside the phrase, "I'm not ready for a relationship." Sometimes it's not a puzzle you need to solve. Sometimes it's simply a moment of clarity. A moment where someone quietly tells you that their emotional direction is moving somewhere else. And instead of seeing that as rejection, you can see it as information. Information that saves you months, or even years, of waiting for someone who was never going to arrive where you were standing. Because the truth about real connection is surprisingly simple. When do people genuinely want to build something together, they rarely need complicated explanations. They just start building. And when that happens, nobody needs to say they're ready. It's already obvious. If this story felt familiar to you, you're not alone. Some of the most important lessons about love are the ones we only understand after someone leaves. And sometimes, that understanding is the very thing that prepares us for the relationship that finally stays.